Okay, so when we're meeting with a client and we're talking about them leaving their money to somebody, they're typically talking about leaving it to a child, a beneficiary, a loved one, someone in the family usually. And we usually have a couple different conversations, and I'll say, look, are you comfortable with that person, that child, getting all that money outright? And depending on the amount of money, if the client thinks it's either a lot or not a lot, they might say, yeah, they can get it all, or no, let's set it out where they get the money in stages at set ages. Or depending on if the person is suffering from addiction or has some issues, we might talk about staggering it. So what I'm talking about here is what's called an incentive trust, because oftentimes, and that's just an informal name, but oftentimes when I start speaking with the client and they tell me, hey, look, they're only getting X amount of dollars, I'm not concerned about it. Well, I say, you're talking about now. What about 20, 30 years from now when you pass away? Because typically our clients come to us in their, early 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. So they've got a fair amount of runway left in their life. And so you're looking at it from, you have X amount of dollars now, that money is likely going to continue to grow. Or they might say to us, yeah, my kids are great. They get along. They would never fight. They're the perfect children. I'll just leave it to them outright. And again, you're looking at that from where you are right now. Who knows what those kids are going to be like in 20, 30 years? People change. Imagine how much you've changed probably over 5, 10 years. 20, 30 years, there's a lot of changes that go on. So we typically talk and maybe suggest or just advise on what's called an incentive trust. And so really what that is setting up parameters or setting up things, incentives, so that if the child or beneficiary, whoever, does certain things or does not do certain things, they might get different amounts of money. Most commonly is when you have young children, you probably don't want your kids to get all the money outright in 18. So we might say they get X amount when they graduate from college, and then they get some more when they turn 25, some more when they turn 28, and maybe outright at 30 or 35, something like that. Or if you have a child who's maybe suffering from addiction or has a gambling addiction, drugs, alcohol, gets into a lot of debts, has a lot of creditors, maybe you set up incentives that say, hey, look, you'll get X amount of dollars if you are in therapy once a week, and if you pass a drug test every so often, whatever it might be. But incentives can work in a great way, even if you don't have, hopefully no children, no children with addiction or anything like that. But incentives can be great because, again, even if it's, pick a number that you think is a relative amount of money, you can kind of give them a sense of urgency to do things in order to get that money. Maybe it's important to you that they get an advanced degree. Maybe it's important that they maintain a B average. Maybe it's important that they, give a portion of that to a church, a charity, or something. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I would just encourage you, when you're planning out your estate and when you're thinking about who gets what, you don't have to be so just set on, hey, they get it all when we pass away. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And for a lot of people, that works out just fine. But you can get creative and you can do things that really incentivize them to do some good in the world, or to at least, even if you don't care about them doing good in the world, that will at least allow them to receive their inheritance a little bit more responsibly. So incentive trust, again, it's an informal name, but something you might want to consider when you're setting up your estate plan.